Mike, you want to say anything? I know we got Trump in for a week. We got to be commenting on that.
My name is Mike Lacoste, and I'm from Waverly, Iowa. And probably about 2.5 years ago, I think it was, I got associated with Gary and Al and Larry here. Our commitment was to try to do what we could do about the Constitution and to get our counties to really look at the seriousness that we need to have our counties become constitutional. And the real important is that our sheriffs understand the powers they have. I would say that probably 80% of the people out there, the sheriffs, probably don't know the powers they have. And so it's been a learning process, but along the way, and I'm going to go into a little detail, somebody that's came into my life to continue doing what I'm doing to get my message out there. When you get defeated, it's very well to put your tail between your legs and go away. I'm not that type of person. I'll stand up and speak for what I believe in. But when I look around this crowd tonight, where in the hell are the young people? This is going to be their generation. Well, good, good. The other thing is, I've listened to Jacob Hall a couple times. Jacob, you're a true patriot. I commend you for that. But going back to what I did, to say I could have very well just folded up and went away, but I didn't. A person that came into my life, and I don't know how many people know her. Her name is Kathy O'Brien. How many in here have heard of her? Well, Kathy O'Brien was part of MK Ultra. MK Ultra is something real. Look her up. Her name is Kathy O'Brien, MK Ultra. It deals with sex trafficking. And it would do you well to do your research on her, because I guarantee you her story is real. Sex trafficking is real in this country. So take a look and do your research, go to the internet and find out about her. So that, any questions? A movement starts with one person, good or bad, and you got to grow that movement. And that's why when I see Jacob Hall doing what he's doing, he does a great job, and I'm waiting for him to speak. So the problem is, Richard, is that we can have all the meetings in the world. People come every month and voice their concerns, get their frustrations off. But the problem is, I'm not the person to sit back and let my frustrations out. I'm a doer. You got to be a dreamer. It's also good to have dreamers, but you got to be doers. You got to put yourself in that doing position. And that's what we're up against, the complacency of this country right now. And that's got to change. Well, I'll leave this, and I know Jacob wants to get up and talk. But about 8 months ago, after going through all this, I got fed up with the Republican Party that I was part of. I'm a very strong Republican. But today, it's not whether you're a Democrat, which I would never be, a socialist, fascist, Marxist, communist. It's whether you're a globalist that believes in that, or a constitutionalist. And I consider myself today as a constitutional conservative that believes in our God-given rights and freedoms, and that we are a constitutional republic.
Okay, with that, thank you, Mike. Pledge allegiance to the flag, and we got a stationary flag here today, and it's probably going to be here for years. Steve Bradley got that from state of Iowa. It flew over the Capitol one day, and there's a paper that they're going to hang up too. I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and justice for all. Gary is going to do the prayer.
Yeah, Keith is not here tonight, so I was asked to do the prayer for the evening. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. We thank you, Lord, for the blessings that you've given each and every one of us. We thank you for the ability to gather here freely tonight and discuss matters that are important to us and to the country. We thank you for the freedoms that you've given us and the freedoms that we hopefully will get back. We ask you to protect President Trump and his family and all those that he appoints. We also thank you for Jacob and for his wife to travel here tonight and for the service that he provides to all of us. It's greatly appreciated. Keep them safe on their travels. And last, we thank those who puts this monthly meeting on every week, every month, and for the Saturday meetings as well. We thank them for all the time that they put in and for the effort that they've put forth so that we may meet here tonight. And we ask lastly that all those that are here will be able to travel home safe and continue to promote the cause that we so desperately strive for. And we ask this in your name, Lord, in the name of the Father, and the Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
I guess it's my pleasure to introduce Jacob Hall from Iowa Standard. I did get a link out to Iowa Standard Thursday or Wednesday. Hopefully you broke in there and take a look at it. Let's do a warm welcome for Jacob and his travel.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Oh, this does come on through the speakers too. All right. First of all, thank you guys for being here tonight. Normally, in late January, I would thank you for coming out in frigid, cold temperatures, but we didn't have that problem today. So thankfully, I think it was 51 degrees when I got in the car today from the Capitol to head up here and crack the window and headed over. It was a welcome change from this time a week ago. So what I want to talk about tonight is explain a little bit of who I am, what I do, why I do it. And then we'll have a conversation about some things one big issue that will happen at the Capitol this year, and then I'll take questions from you guys. This sounds like my kind of room. So my problem is I'm just going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to stand up here and give you a bunch of political answers. So because of that, you should have plenty of time for questions because I won't give you a 5-minute answer that actually doesn't answer anything at all. Now, most of this is a PowerPoint presentation, and I'm just going to show you guys one slide in particular as we get going. But to let you know who I am, like they said, my name's Jacob Hall. I grew up in Des Moines, product of Des Moines Public Schools, went to Des Moines Roosevelt, studied journalism at Iowa Central, and then Drake, and then Grandview. I got a job in the sports information office at Drake. So if my choice was go to class or go to work, and that doesn't work very well at a college like Drake. My wife, Amanda, this is Jamie. She is not my wife. Jamie, stand up for a second. My wife is actually 6'3", so that is not my wife. That's how I know that. But my wife, Amanda, is from Sioux Center. We have 4 kids. Austin is 17, Tate is 15, Josie is 12, and Eli is 9. And my other 3 would tell you Eli is my favorite, and they're not entirely wrong on that. I love 3 of them quite a bit. Tate, I'm kidding, Tate. So I worked in journalism from the time I was 16, started in sports journalism, but as I got older and things changed, mainly a wife and kids, things became more important than kicking a ball, throwing a baseball, shooting a basketball, and I got more involved in politics. I started the Iowa Standard because who tells the story matters. Who controls the language matters, and confidence matters. Who tells the story? This might floor you guys, but I'm here to tell you that journalism in America is a mission field. It's biased against you. I know. I'll give you time to let that sink in. But there was a survey done by researchers from Texas A&M and Arizona State of 462 financial journalists. So financial journalists deal with numbers. It's a little more difficult to fake news numbers than it is the news. So these people should be more conservative than your average journalist. But of 462 financial journalists who were polled on their politics, 17.63% said they were very liberal. 40.84% said they were somewhat liberal. 37.12% said they were moderate. Now, I told you, I'm a product of Des Moines Public Schools, so I'm not a math wizard. But 17.63 plus 40.84 plus 37.12 adds up to a lot. A lot. And it leaves 3.94% who said they were somewhat conservative and a whopping 0.46% who said they were very conservative. Who tells the story matters. Who controls the language matters. You guys have maybe seen headlines on foxnews.com, or if you find a newspaper that you think leans right, it'll say anti-choice instead of pro-life. And you might say, why are they doing that? And the answer is, every media conglomerate in this country, by and large, goes by the AP style book. It's basically a journalist's Bible. And if you want to work your way up the ladder, you will write by AP style. And then, according to AP style, it's not pro-choice or pro-life, it's pro-choice or anti-choice. It wasn't pro-marriage equality or pro-biblical marriage, it was pro-marriage equality or anti-equality. In 2020, the Summer of Love with Black Lives Matter, you could not call their events riots, you had to say they were protests. No person can be illegal according to the AP style book. You have to refer to them as undocumented. And now, the AP style tells us as journalists that we have to respect preferred pronouns. And you have to avoid terms. Now, this is radical, like biological sex, a term that has existed since the beginning of time, and up until 5 minutes ago, offended no one. They say you have to use the phrase sex assigned at birth and avoid the phrase both sexes, because there's more than two. Ironically, it also tells you to be, quote, sensitive and accurate. The question is, how can you do both if those are their guidelines? Who's confident? You asked, where are the young people? Young people, as we know, tend to be a little bit more liberal. That is changing right now. Young men in America are as conservative as they've been, I think, in 40 years. But ask yourself why. Why are young people so liberal? I don't think it's hard to figure out. Young people, like most people, are attracted to the same thing: confidence. So, if you have a Democrat in here and a Republican in here, and you bring up one of those controversial issues, how many of you have heard a Republican answer a controversial question with something like, well, you know, there's a lot of good people on both sides, and personally, I believe this, but, you know, we can agree to disagree on this. It's apologetic conservatism. It's not appealing to anybody. Do you ever hear the left, ever, apologize for their insanity? Never. Why? I would argue because they actually believe it. They actually believe it. And I would tell you, our side, when it comes to the elected people, very few of them believe those controversial things. And that's why they struggle so much talking about them. So it's kind of like Andy Reid walking into the locker room before the Super Bowl in 2 Sundays and telling the Chiefs, hey, we're going to go out there, we're scoring every time we touch the ball. The Eagles aren't crossing the 50-yard line. We are going to absolutely dominate this game. Who's with me? He'll have a team willing to follow him onto the field. As opposed to if Andy Reid walked in between commercial shoots and he said, boy, guys, I got to be honest with you. That team, the Eagles, I looked at them across the 50-yard line during pregame warmups, and they are big, and they are fast, and they are strong. But, any given Sunday, let's go. We can do it. Let's try our best and have fun. Nobody's following him onto the field. They're looking for the back door exit to the locker room. And that's what I feel like Republicans provide as their message to young people. No confidence, but apologetic conservatism. So why the Iowa Standard? It wasn't always this way. Newspapers in early America were honest about their bias. That's why there's so many papers still to this day called the Marshalltown Times Republican, the Sioux County Democrat, the Independent. The publishers were just honest. They figured it's a radical idea, people could know the truth, read the information, and make a decision for themselves and be okay. But now they want you guys to believe a lie that you can find political news that's unbiased. Ask yourself how that could make a lick of sense. Because in order to be a political news reporter, you have to write about politics. Why would you write about politics if you did not care? It makes no sense. So I prefer to just be honest about my worldview. You might tell I lean to the right slightly. But so then why the Iowa Standard? Because we had to educate people. You guys, does everybody here agree that the federal government is a bit bloated? It's a little bigger than maybe it should be and a little out of control. Why is that? Well, what does the media feed you information about? The federal government. You get excited about your congressional race, your U.S. Senate race. You get excited about, and it's important, you get excited about the presidency. But what about your state house race? What about state senate? County supervisor, school board, city council? I don't have to say it in this room, sheriff, who should be your most important politician in your life. What about those races? You don't get that information from the media. Why? Because you could actually impact those races. They want you guys to worry about a presidency. Again, I'm not saying it's not important, but realize the scope of your voice in that race. You have a voice that determines 6 electoral college votes out of 535, I think. That's your voice. In Congress, your voice is 1 out of 600-some thousand. U.S. Senate, your voice is 1 out of a few million. But at the state Senate level, your voice is 1 out of 60,000. At the state house level, your voice is 1 out of 30,000. Take that down to county, city, school board elections, and the voice only amplifies. That's where you can make a difference. In 2016, I was helping my friend Skylar Wheeler run for Iowa House. Jamie actually clerks for him in the Iowa House, and he is the chair of the Education Committee. At that time in 2016, he had just graduated from Northwestern College, was from Washington State. If you know anything about Sioux County, you know that they believe strongly, if you're not Dutch, you're not much. Neither Skylar or I are Dutch. Both of us are under 6 feet tall. But we won that race because we went door to door, knocked, had conversations, and more importantly, educated people. He literally beat his political science college professor in that race. But I realized there was a disconnect. Sioux County leans Republican. It votes Republican, I think, at 82%. It's kind of like Iowa City, except exactly opposite. But I realized there's a lot of people that just don't know what's going on at the state level. We'd knock on a door, they'd answer, I'd say, hey, my name's Jacob Hall, I'm knocking doors today on behalf of Skylar Wheeler. He's running for Iowa House, District 4, it's Dwayne Alon's old seat. And they'd say, oh, Dwayne's not running? And I'd say, no, Dwayne's not running. He died 2 years ago. So he's not running for office, might be voting Democrat, we're not sure, but he is not running for office. And I realized that happened more than it should. And I thought people just don't know what they don't know, which is a quote I first heard, I think, from Jeb Bush. And at the time I was like, that doesn't make sense. And then I thought about it, and it actually makes perfect sense. So we started the Iowa Standard live stream subcommittee, committee meetings down at the Capitol, give people an inside look at what actually happens at the Capitol. Because once you guys see the floor debate, which is the only thing they streamed before COVID and before I started doing what I do, that's recital. That stuff is planned. That stuff is scripted. That stuff is not organic. We'll put it that way. In fact, more often than not, I have seen a Republican turn their light on to speak only to have leadership come over, whisper in their ear, and suddenly that light goes off. And they don't even talk. Well, we wanted to, one, tell the truth, and two, embolden conservatives. Not be a place where you have to apologize for being conservative. We've exposed stories that, again, the mainstream media shockingly did not want to touch. The Biden administration delivering children from the border at 10:30 at night to the Des Moines airport. Governor Reynolds' office didn't know about it, denied it happened. State legislators, U.S. senators didn't know about it. Meanwhile, I had the contract with the charter company. I had surveillance footage of the planes on the ground at the Des Moines airport with the kids getting off, loaded onto buses, and then taken across the Midwest. I talked with one of those bus drivers. I tracked everything down. Nobody knew it happened. You think the mainstream media was going to tell that story? The Pella Pool situation where a teenage girl went topless because she identified as a boy. Sexually explicit books in school libraries, we'll talk more about that later, and a government entity, Broadlawns Hospital, punishing Freedom Blend Coffee, a Christian ministry, because they entered into a contract. Freedom Blend Coffee was running the coffee store at Broadlawns Hospital, and they severed the contract because they found out Freedom Blend Coffee believed as a ministry, which apparently Broadlawns just didn't think was possible, in biblical marriage. So a government entity severed a contract with a Christian ministry over their Christian beliefs. Should not be allowed to happen. So I hope that you guys can take time. We've got some of these cards. You can feel free to take 1 or 5 if you have friends and hand these out maybe at church or something else. There's a code, QR code, to download our app or sign up for our email newsletter. I'd really encourage you guys to sign up for the email newsletter. It's super simple. I think I do it every other day if I'm doing a good job, which is about 3 out of the 12 months of the year. And we have a Facebook page. You can find us on Twitter and all the different social medias, but I'd really encourage you to check it out. It's a very important resource. Obviously, I wake up every day and think about it. I encourage you guys not to do that because it's a very disturbing time to be in politics and reporting, but I do encourage you to check it out so that you know what's going on. Because I have this crazy, radical idea that if the majority of the people who live here in Iowa have the right information, the correct information, they'll make the right decision. Because the left owns the media. The left owns education. It owns pop culture. But there's one thing the left doesn't have, and it's the truth. That's because that's on our side. We just have to be willing to tell it. So I really encourage you guys to grab one of these. I think Jamie's going to hand them out at some point when she picks up on the cue that I just gave for the 3rd time. And then... And please, I'm serious. My wife told me not to order 1,000 of these when I reordered them because she didn't think I needed that many. So the more you guys take, even if you don't hand them out, the less I go back home with, and I don't have to tell her she was right. I can say they flew like hotcakes. All right. So tonight, I want to hit on, and I don't know if you saw the news over the weekend, but the left is freaking out over gender identity being stripped out of the Iowa Civil Rights Code. Some of you might not even know that gender identity is in the Civil Rights Code in Iowa. Some of you might not even know what the heck gender identity even is. That's because you're sane. So we're gonna go through this, and there's a way for this to come across that's super depressing, because it's genuinely sad that people believe this and that kids get caught up in it and they fall into this lifestyle where they genuinely believe they are a boy trapped in a girl's body or a girl trapped in a boy's body. So it is sad and it is depressing, but here's the thing with information. Now you can do something about it, because you're going to learn about how this movement got infested into Iowa's politics. And you're going to be able to go back to your state reps and your state senators and say, this has no business being in Iowa code. Now, if we sit here and we just hear it and we do nothing, then it is super depressing. But on the other side of this can be victory. And it's not going to be hard to do, because we have 67 Republicans in the Iowa House and 34, soon to be 35, hopefully, Republicans in the Iowa Senate. So surely they will want to do this, you would think. What is gender identity? Activists are claiming that there is a difference between sex and gender. Sex is what you're born with, your parts. Gender is how you feel and how you express yourself. When you hear the term gender-affirming care, has anybody ever heard the term gender-affirming care in the media? What that really is a sex change. But gender-affirming care sounds kind of like agreeable if you don't know what it is. Sex changes on kids, on the other hand, that tends to be where people draw the line. Some people will say, why does this issue matter? They're not going to trick me. They're not fooling me into believing that a boy can become a girl can become a boy, or that there's 57 other genders to pick from. But I'm going to tell you why this issue matters. We're going to do a little exercise. All you have to do is raise your hand. If you raise your hand, keep your hand up. Raise your hand if you are a woman. All right, we don't have anybody who's too confused yet. Raise your hand if you have a daughter or a granddaughter. Raise your hand if you have a wife. Keep your hand up if it's up. Raise your hand if you had a mom. All right, so everybody's got their hand up at this point. This issue matters to everybody. You can put your hands down, as evidenced by that exercise, because as silly as it sounds, how can a society function if you can't agree on a basic term such as, what is a woman? How can a society function? Imagine owning a grocery store or a gas station, and the customer gives you a $20 bill, and you say, oh, your gas was $57.38. Oh, yeah, that's a $100 bill. No, but it's a $20. But you have to accept their delusion. Imagine that. Now, that first question I asked during that exercise was to raise your hand if you're a woman. I don't want to assume in the year 2025 how you guys came to that conclusion. That's an individual decision, individual choice. I'm not here to judge. But I do want to show you a slide that was a handout from a serious leftist lobbyist last year during a subcommittee on a bill that defined the word woman. And this slide will show you an image, a chart that determines how to know if you're a woman. And as I said earlier, these people, I'm probably going to get feedback, and I'm going off camera. These people are serious. They believe this chart right here lets you know whether you are a woman or a man. They entered it into the record during an Iowa House subcommittee. It looks like somebody gave John Madden his telestrator back, and it's Thanksgiving football game, and he's going over what turduck it is.
I got a question.
Yeah.
If a guy thinks he's a one,
Yeah.
couldn't a well-placed kick refocus that conversation?
Well, I mean, one would think so. But then there's also people that are into pain, I guess. So I'm not real sure how that would go over. And if you guys are curious, I can email that slide to somebody and they can send it to you guys. We can joke, we can laugh, but like I said earlier, they are serious. They really believe it. And their politicians will not abandon their base on this issue. We saw that President Trump's most effective commercial was what? Kamala Harris is for they, them. President Trump is for you. They could not respond to it. Kamala Harris, doesn't mean they didn't try. Kamala Harris's campaign poll tested ads in response. Every single one failed so badly they never aired them. Because that issue is a total loser. Yet it's controversial. Transgender trend. 5% of young adults today in America identify as non-binary, which means not boy, not girl, or transgender. There are 1.2 million non-binary people from 18 to 60 years old. 75% of them are under 30. The number of transgender youth doubled in 5 years. Pew Research, again, 18 to 29-year-olds, 5% non-binary or trans, 50 and older, 0.3%. 0.3% in one generation to 5% in the next. How on earth does that happen? That is a huge increase. LGBTQ identities among Generation Z doubled in 4 years. It went from 10.5% in 2017 to 20.8% in 2021. Today it is over 25%. I said earlier I have 4 kids. Statistically, what does that mean if 25% identify as LGBTQ? One of them should. How many grandkids do you guys have? How many kids do you have? How many great-grandkids if you're lucky? Gender identity is a protected class in the state of Iowa. In 2007, Iowa added sexual orientation and gender identity to the Iowa Civil Rights Code. Republicans are going to tell you it's the Democrats' fault. And it is true that in 2007, the Democrats controlled the Iowa House, the Iowa Senate, and Terrace Hill with the governorship. But it's also true that in the Iowa House, that bill passed with 59 votes, 5-9. And in order for a bill to pass the Iowa House, it has to get 51 votes. And it just so happens this particular bill got 59 votes. Does anybody want to guess how many Republicans voted yes? 9. The exact number they needed to pass it. Without Republican support, that would not have happened. Iowa provides full protections: employment, housing, public accommodations, credit, and state employees. Iowa is the only red state in this country that does it. Utah is the other red state, and let's be honest, like they've elected Mitt Romney multiple times. So how red are they? Utah has protections for employment, housing, and state employees. Otherwise, it's just Iowa. Since 2007, Republicans have controlled this state for 8 years. If there's anything that you guys wanted to see done at the state level for the last 8 years, it didn't happen because Democrats stopped it. It happened because Republicans didn't do it. Anything. Okay, so what are some other states that do this? Here's the list we're on. This is the company we keep. California, Colorado, Connecticut, D.C., Illinois, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Rhode Island, Vermont, Virginia, Washington. Anybody thinking about moving to any of those states? Iowa offers more protections than Delaware, Hawaii, Maryland, Michigan, New Hampshire, Oregon, Utah, and Wisconsin. What's this led to? Gender identity. Well, there's a man in the United Kingdom who identifies as a 6-year-old girl. There's a Canadian man who identifies as a 13-year-old girl. If he identified as a 13-year-old boy, I'd have to see if I could get him on my Little League team this year. There's a child at the Washington University Clinic who identified as a, quote, communist attack helicopter, human female, maybe non-binary. Quote. There was an Iowa child who identifies as, quote, moon, with pronouns that are, quote, anything but she and her. This is not a joke. The Pella Pool incident. Because Iowa code protects based on gender identity and the pool was owned by the city, the teenage girl was allowed to go topless because she identified as a boy. So if you took your 2-year-old or your 3-year-old child to the Pella Pool that day, they saw a topless teenage girl because she identified as a boy, and there was nothing the city felt they could do about it. A volleyball player in North Carolina was concussed due to a spike from a boy. We've seen prisoners undergo sex changes or prisoners get put into women's facilities rather than men. We've seen, this is a problem. We have seen a father get a restraining order because he would not go along with this from the child's mother. Now, I'm being recorded. I'm probably going to screw up the facts on this case, the numbers of it, but so forgive me if I'm wrong. But I believe he was given a restraining order from the time the kid was 3 until he was 7. And then when he still didn't go along with it, a California judge extended the restraining order until the kid was 12. And guess what the age of consent in California is to start your transitioning? Here in Iowa, Linmar was sued because they had secret gender identity transition plans for students. Schools across this state ask students, you know that first day survey you get so your teacher can get to know you and your buddy? On those surveys, they ask students, what is your preferred pronoun? And the next question is, do you want me to share this information with your mom or dad? We've had students using the opposite sex bathroom because they identify as the other gender. A middle school cross-country coach who was transitioning, parents of the kids that participated not notified. And at the YMCA in Forest City, not Iowa City, not Ames, not Sioux City, Forest City, a man was allowed to use the female locker room, and anybody who was uncomfortable with that would have accommodations made to go use the individual use area. The gender identity insanity targets who? Kids. There's a reason you don't see drag queen story hour at the local nursing home. Those folks aren't falling for it. They've got it pretty well figured out at this point in life. But then you have things like the Ames Black Lives Matter Week of Action, where preschoolers were told they could choose to be a boy, a girl, both, neither, or my personal favorite, something else. I emailed members of the Ames school board at the time and I said, just curious, can you give me some examples of the something else's these kids may be? To this day, I have not gotten a response because there isn't anything. But that's what they're teaching kids. You have library books like My Princess Boy and Morris Micklewhite and the Tangerine Dress that promote boys to wear dresses, and you've got library books that are even worse now. And it's ironic because last year when there was a bill to allow 14 and 15-year-olds to drive 25 miles from home to school, Democrats, that's just too far. We can't trust kids to do that. Their brains aren't yet fully developed. But just the year earlier, the Democrats would tell you children should be able to consent to sex changes. They don't even see their hypocrisy. They're not going to convince us, so they have to convince them. In 2018, there was a report published by the University of Iowa Public Policy Center saying that schools need to have, quote, visible advocates for LGBTQ students and staff needs to be educated on students transitioning. They wanted gay straight alliance groups in 100% of high schools and middle schools, with elementary schools next. inclusion in all school materials and events, every grade, every subject of the curriculum. They wanted kindergarten curriculum adapted to include stories of same-sex parents. They emphasized the need to clarify between sex and gender and to use students' authentic name. There's a group called Iowa Safe Schools. Anybody here opposed to Iowa Safe Schools just if you hear the name? Of course not. But that's their facetious name. Their actual name is GLBT Youth in Iowa Schools Task Force. And every year they host an event called the Iowa Governor's Conference on LGBTQ Youth. If you're a school administrator and you know nothing about that group, and you hear the event, Iowa Governor's Conference on LGBTQ Youth, that sounds as though it's legitimate, correct? Like maybe even the governor is okay with it. It started under Tom Vilsack. Terry Branstad did not take the name off it. Kim Reynolds has not taken the name off it. In 2015, the conference was so bad there had to be an investigation by the Iowa House. They had a drag queen named Coco tell students that if they saw a truck with a bumper sticker that supported traditional marriage, they should slash the tires. They had another performer, there's no kids here, they had another performer come out in a costume of condoms. One school administrator said it was like XXX sex ed. They have not taken the governor's title off of that conference. Side note, the lobbyist for that group, Iowa Safe Schools, used to work in Governor Reynolds' office. They did a presentation at the conference one year on inclusive sex ed. Planned Parenthood came in and did it. And there was a slide that I have here. I'm trying to decide how I want to do this one. And it was titled, "What is Sex?" I'm being recorded, so at the expense of this, I'm gonna read some of these anyways. If you don't know any of these, don't Google them. Trust me. Mutual masturbation without protection, naked massage, rimming, oral sex on the entire penis, closed mouth kissing, watching people have sex, and then it gets worse. The last thing they told middle school and high school students, what is sex? The last thing, which all these things hypothetically should be comparable, you would think, is holding hands. Ames Elementary School. This year, an administrator sent an email to staff, the principal, saying that she herself is working on eliminating the phrase "you guys" from her speech. And that she's been walking through the school and she's heard a lot of, quote, "boys and girls" when teachers are addressing the classroom to line up. And that she recommended using different ideas of inclusive phrases than just "boys and girls." There was a video shown to second grade students at United Elementary in Boone called "'Twas the Night Before Pride" without any parental notification. You can't hear it, but no parental consent. And it says, "Pride is the best day ever." They have the two moms, they have the drag queens, there's all of it. No parental consent. Where are we at? We're not in a county that's banned conversion therapy yet. But like Waterloo, the city tried to ban it last year, and then they got sued and they changed their mind. Lynn County has a ban, I believe. Conversion therapy, what is that? Conversion therapy is if your son or your daughter comes home and they say they're confused about their sexual orientation or their gender identity, you want to take them to get counseling from a licensed healthcare professional. That is conversion therapy. What the left wants to do is ban conversion therapy. Unless the therapist will affirm the feelings of confusion. Now it's weird because these are the same people who say you can't come between a woman and her doctor and tell a doctor what to say about other things. They want you to send your kid, your grandkid to their preschool that you pay for. Tell your granddaughter, your grandson, that they can choose to be a boy, a girl, both, neither, or something else, and then they want to make it illegal for you to go get that kid help when they get confused.
Wouldn't be illegal to take them out of there.
And again, they're serious. You guys, there was a subcommittee on a bill to ban conversion therapy statewide that was introduced by a Republican. Republicans scheduled it. They killed it, but they thought it. We've had well, I said I was going to be honest. Your new lieutenant governor spoke at a fundraiser for Iowa Safe Schools to ban conversion therapy in the state of Iowa. In 2019, maybe, shared the stage with Sam Brenton, if you remember the guy from the Biden administration who was stealing women's luggage from the airport. So what can we do in response? Well, last year there was a bill in the Iowa Senate to ban conversion therapy bans from the state level, but it didn't go anywhere. Republicans killed it. Where are we at today? It's 2025. Last year we had bills defining words like woman, man, female, male, mother, father. An entire political party opposes this. Every single Democrat in the Iowa legislature voted against a bill to protect kids from sex changes, voted against the bathroom bill, voted against protecting women's sports. Every single one. And guess what? Some Republicans joined them. Why does this matter? It's not about transgenderism, which is a lie. Because if it's true for all of us. All of us could one day wake up and suddenly say, hey, I'm a woman trapped in a man's body. Or vice versa. This is about power and control and the truth. They're trying to force you to accept a lie. Tucker Carlson said, you look at transgender activists, and if you watch them protest things, they get angry. They're the angriest activists you've ever seen. And he said the reason why he thinks that is because people get really mad when they think they're God and you tell them they're not. And that's the role they think they have. Because God creates us male and female in His image. That's the truth they're expecting you to reject. And Iowa Code rejects. They are literally in America taking kids from their parents to do this. Men are taking scholarships from women. Riley Gaines and Paula Scanlon, I've heard them speak about their experience with Leah Thomas, who, by the way, I wrote an article about Will Thomas because he went and spoke at Iowa State. And the article was flagged by Google as harmful language. The only thing I did was refer to him as Will Thomas. It's the only thing I did. And when they went to their coaches and complained, they got counseling, not Will. They were the problem. Men are seeking to enter women's prisons and shelters, and society just cannot function like this. Can't. The media is never going to be on our side. We're going to be called bigots, transphobes, homophobes, haters, xenophobes, all the phobes. Doesn't matter. We cannot care so much to the point of what they call us that we're not willing to tell the truth. They think that lying is loving, but compassion is not normalizing crazy. Just think of somebody in your life, close to you, who in the last 10 or 20 years died. And now, tomorrow, you get to have lunch with them. And maybe there's a TV in the corner of the cafe, or they see a newspaper and some gender identity, transgender this, and they say, what's that? And you have to explain it to them. How would that conversation go? Every single person in human history up until 5 minutes ago knew what a girl was, what a boy was, didn't need the flow chart. When they find human remains and they say it's a male or a female, they didn't go back and get the gender identity from the person. They figured it out. We may want to get along, but we should want the truth more. We have to recognize the moment we are in. Republicans control the Iowa House for the 9th year in a row. They control the Iowa Senate for the 9th year in a row. They have the governorship for the 9th year in a row. They've protected women's sports, kind of. Did you know that the bill that protects women's sports only applies to schools from Iowa? So when San Jose State's volleyball team came to Iowa City this fall and they had the man playing on their team, that was okay. Because the law to protect women's sports only applied to Iowa schools. So Iowa girls can come to school and get beat up on by the dudes, but hey, we protected women's sports. The opposition wants this. And now when I say they really believe this, I don't mean like Joe Biden. Okay, because as Ted Cruz said at America Fest, I can't take credit for this joke. I wish I could. Joe Biden, we know that Joe Biden knows the difference between a woman and a man because we've never seen a picture of him sniffing the hair of a little boy. But their base really believes this. Last year, there was a bill to strip gender identity out of the Civil Rights Code, but provide those same civil rights protections under disability if you've been diagnosed with gender dysphoria. 300 to 400 transgender activists showed up at the Capitol, and in an attempt to prove that gender identity, transgenderism isn't a mental disorder, acted completely crazy. They banged on the door of the room where the subcommittee and committee were. They shouted cuss words and profanities out in the rotunda. Every time someone for those bills tried to speak, they shouted, they chanted, they cheered. And what did our side do? Sit there and let them do it. We need Republicans who are willing to do the hard things. Lowering the income tax to 3.8%, like, okay, cool, but was that hard? We need them willing to do the hard things. You guys can think back to Caitlin Clark and the University of Iowa women's basketball team. Anybody here, when you think of Caitlin Clark and you think of that one play that was like, man, that was amazing. Any of you think of a free throw? Which ironically, I think was how she broke the scoring record. So that doesn't work as well anymore. But you think of the 27-footer with the hand in the face that won the game. That's what you think of, because it was hard. And here's the crazy thing. We sit here and we say we need Republicans willing to do the hard things. This shouldn't even be that hard. I mean, this isn't that difficult to figure out, because they're going after the kids. They're going after the kids. And if we can't stand up for them, don't even think about what they're going after the kids for. But now factor that in, and they're going after this that will sterilize them. They'll chop off healthy body parts. That is what they are doing. There cannot be room for compromise on this. You can't go halfway on a gender transition. It's all or nothing. It didn't end when they removed prayer from public school. It didn't end when they legalized abortion, when they did no-fault divorce, with homosexual marriage. It's not going to end with transanity. This is a direct attack against what? The most basic, fundamental, foundational form of governance we know, the family. They will take your kid from you. The teachers will keep secrets from you. And it's not going to end here if we don't stop it. Nothing in human history suggests a group of people gets to a certain point, and they stop, and they look at each other, and they say, you know what? I think we're perverted enough. Let's just stay right here. We're not going to go any further. What's next? Well, Iowa provides protections based on sexual orientation. What's the next sexual orientation they're trying to normalize? Are you familiar with the phrase MAPS? Minor attracted persons. That's how they want you to refer to pedophiles. January 10, 2022, 3 years ago, USA Today had a story with the headline, quote, "The complicated research behind pedophilia." In the story it said, according to scientists, pedophilia is misunderstood. It's a disorder that's determined in the womb. It's inborn. It's not something people choose. They're born that way. College professors have been caught saying something similar. So if they don't choose it, and it's determined in the womb and they're born that way, that has to be an orientation. And it deals with attraction, which is sexual orientation. So if we protect based on sexual orientation, where might this go in 10, 20, 30 years? And like we sit here and we say, like, that's crazy. That'll never happen. But 10 years ago, 20 years ago, if I was here telling you every Democrat in the Iowa legislature voted against a bill that said only girls can play girls' sports, you'd probably think, that's crazy. It would never happen. We've seen plenty of illegal behavior or mental disorders go from being socially discouraged to socially celebrated. This is no different. If they can force you to accept the idea that a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man, what can they not force you to accept next? This has to be the line in the sand. This is not the time to sit on the fence. There's a televangelist that tells a story that he had heard about a guy who was standing in a field, and there was a fence there. And on one side of the fence was Jesus, and on the other side of the fence was the devil. And he knew he wasn't quite ready to go all in for Jesus, like he's not quite there, but he's not going to go with the devil. He knew enough. And when I say the devil, I don't mean like the one that comes out on Halloween, ugly, red things, tail. It was actually like a nice-looking person who was winsome and able to confuse people. So the guy thought, I'm not going to make a choice. He put one foot up on the fence, the other foot on the fence. As soon as that second foot hit the top of the fence, poof, everybody was gone. This field was empty, that field was empty. But he felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned around. It was the devil. And he said, "No, devil, you don't understand. I didn't choose you." And the devil said, "No, you don't understand. The fence is mine too." We cannot sit on the fence on this stuff when they are going after our kids and our grandkids, and they are trying to make us accept their lie. We cannot. You have to get involved. One side wins this, one side loses. We're behind. Last year when that bill to strip gender identity out of the Civil Rights Code, but allow it to be protected if they're diagnosed with gender dysphoria, died in the subcommittee by Republicans, House Majority Leader Matt Winchell told the Des Moines Register he doesn't support stripping gender identity out of the Civil Rights Code because it would send the wrong message. It would tell Iowans it's okay to discriminate. Apparently, the only thing keeping Iowans from discriminating against transgender people is a law. They don't believe it. Based on what I have been told, does this post to YouTube right away? Not right away? Okay. Based on what I have been told, there will be a bill that addresses gender identity being in the Civil Rights Code. It's not going to touch sexual orientation, which, whatever, I have my own opinion because of the whole MAPS thing and sexual orientation being in there. There will be a bill to get gender identity out of the Civil Rights Code. You're going to have to tell your legislators. Steve Bradley's your House rep? No? Who's your House? Yes?
On this side of Dyersville, on the other side is Craig
Johnson?
Yeah.
Okay, you guys will probably be okay. But Chad Ingalls isn't far from here, right?
Yeah, he's not that far.
He voted against banning sex changes on kids. You're going to have to work on him. But here's the thing. There's 67 of them. We only need 51. You're going to have to encourage them because they will show up. They will yell. They will cuss. They will do everything they can to try to intimidate. I tried to find video from it last year in the subcommittees and I couldn't find it on my phone. They're going to show up because they really believe it. They really do. And this year, for the first time in the Iowa House, there is a transgender individual serving in the Iowa House. And what I was told, you guys are just going to get a lot of insights. It's like Baskin Robbins, 31 scoops? I'm going to give you another scoop here. What I was told is they did not put anything in writing in the rules about Joseph Amy Wichtendahl using the bathroom on the floor of the House. They just worked out an agreement with Democrat leadership that that individual would go use a bathroom outside the chamber. Wouldn't it be nice if every woman in Iowa had that ability to know that a man wouldn't be in the stall next to her, wouldn't be at the bathroom next to her, wouldn't be in the locker in the shower next to her? Because here's the thing. This is the craziest thing. The Republican war on women from a decade ago or whatever. The Civil Rights Act is protected based on sex long before this made-up delusion of gender identity. But if you protect based on both sex and gender identity, how can you do that? Because they automatically conflict. You can't. Women aren't being protected. That's what you need to tell your legislators if you're a woman, or if you're a man, and you have a daughter, or a granddaughter, or a wife. It doesn't have to happen all the time. And when I say it, let's just be honest. A woman doesn't have to get assaulted by a transgender person every day for it to be a problem, correct? Like if it happens once, ooh, that's bad. Okay? It ain't happening a second time if it happens once, though. Because men are going to step up and be protectors. We have to tell our legislators that is what we expect. I just really hope that you guys are able to convey that message to the legislature. There's a lot of other important stuff going on, and I'll answer questions. You guys can ask me questions about it, but I really believe this issue, more than any other, is defining. Because if we can't get this right, I mean, just think of the idea of sending your preschooler to school, having them be told they can be a boy or girl, both, neither, or something else, and then sending that preschooler back in 10th grade to go learn biology from the same people. You guys ever learn about pronouns when you were in preschool? I'm a writer. And these kids know more about preferred pronouns than I knew about pronouns probably when I was like in high school. Again, product of Des Moines Public Schools, not my fault. Do you guys have questions? Any topic, I can take pretty much anything. If I don't know, I'm just going to tell you I don't know as opposed to try to be a politician. So feel free to ask about anything. I know there were people interested in chemtrails. I did ask legislators about that today. And the House, Representative Eddie Andrews, is taking the lead on that. Eddie represents Johnston area. It's a very competitive district. He's actually a good guy. He's a genuinely good guy. He's a bilingual pastor. His wife is actually the head of the Iowa-Nebraska NAACP. So they have an interesting political dynamic. But he's a genuinely good guy, and even though you're not from his district, you're more than welcome to reach out to him with questions. He said the draft of the bill that he's working on is based off of the legislation or what they did in New Hampshire. So if you're familiar with that, that's what he's going for. I encourage you, if you care about that issue, to reach out to him. And then, okay, you can ask questions, but I'm going to bring up one thing to make sure you ask about. You guys... Everybody here lived through COVID, right? Like, I'm not seeing dead people right now. Okay. Everybody here lived through COVID. Does everybody remember during COVID when you could not go to your church because the governor shut it down? Does everybody remember when maybe you couldn't have your business open because it wasn't essential? Everybody remembers that. And that happened in Iowa. You guys remember that, right? Because there's this lie going around that we didn't shut down. And that we didn't do lockdowns, and we didn't do this, and we didn't do that. We definitely did. There is now a bill, Senate File 118, that will reform the governor's emergency powers. Now, Governor Reynolds has made it clear to legislators she does not want them to touch this because she thinks it makes her look like she did something wrong. The first year after COVID, it was the first year after COVID, you know, we can't make her look like she did anything wrong, so we're going to just put it off till the next year. Well, the next year was an election year, and she was up for election, so we can't do anything now because she's up for election. It's going to make her look bad. And then the next year, she actually told some of them that she wants to, maybe she'll take the lead on this and do it. Never happened. So we're 5 years removed now. What's the excuse? It doesn't have to be about what Governor Reynolds did. It has to be about what she could have done. She could have gone Gretchen Whitmer. She could have gone J.B. Pritzker. She could have gone Gavin Newsom, minus the hair, because he looks pretty good as a guy, which I can say comfortably because I'm secure. She could have gone Tim Walz. Weird, right? Yes. She could have done that under Iowa law. They could have forced vaccinated people. Could have. The legislature knows this and has not done a darn thing about it. So I would encourage you to contact the Senate Republicans who are on the state government committee, because they can only lose 3 votes, and there's 5 of them on there that I have to be honest, I'm not sure they'd vote the right way on it. So I would encourage you to reach out to them if you care about that, and let them know you support that bill moving forward. The chair of that committee is Senator Ken Rosenboom, and he said at a forum this weekend he wasn't aware that bill was filed. He wasn't aware it was assigned to his committee. And it was publicly filed on Thursday, so maybe he didn't, but there's only 18 or 19 bills in his entire committee. I think you can keep track of that. And he said himself in 2021 there was an effort to reform that, and he was against it then because he said it may have been the right legislation, but it wasn't the right time. That's your freedom he's talking about. Maybe the right legislation, not the right time. Good.
So Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the Constitution of the State of Iowa and the Constitution of the United States, we have a right to freely assemble, is that correct?
Last I checked.
Okay, so...
But I was at January 6th, so I'm kind of bad to ask.
You can't freely assemble at church if she violated her oath of office. Secondly, if she shuts down businesses, and they shut down business without First Amendment right of due process of law, she violated her oath of office. So this, in my opinion, she should be impeached. She should be impeached for her violation of her oath of office. That's my opinion.
Yeah, you can start a movement for that and go for it and let me know how it goes. I'll be anxiously awaiting. I'd love to write about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you give me some publicity?
Oh, yeah. We can publicize that. And I think it's fair to point out that, like, she was trying to keep people alive. She was genuinely probably trying to do what was best. But As a Republican, as a conservative, you don't close churches. Can we at least agree on that much? And there was a bill last year that made it through subcommittee not to allow the governor to close churches, and they killed it. Legislators are genuinely worried that if they move that bill and they support it, she will either veto the bill, which I said there's absolutely no way she'll do it, or she will hold it against them and veto something else with their name on it to get them back. That's politics. Ain't it fun? You guys should all run for office. On a good day, it's like middle school.
I got a question here.
Okay. I probably don't have an answer, but I can fake it.
I've kind of got a two-part question.
All right.
Do you see any sort of a sea change in the attitudes and culture with the president's signing of this administrative order, assigning two genders? That's part one.
Okay.
And numerically, how do we win this fight? What, where, when, how?
That's a good question. Next question. No, I'm kidding. All right. So President Trump's executive order, I think we have to say one thing from the top. Okay? And President Trump has issued some good executive orders. We can agree on that, right? But they're executive orders. We should not be excited about that because every president has really started using that tool. And if you really like the Constitution, you kind of have to ask yourself how constitutional that is. And the problem with it, obviously, is it's only good until there's the next president. And think about when you were a kid on those, like you went to the state fair, the county fair, and you rode the roller coaster that they put together like an hour ago, and it was a little herky-jerky. These executive orders, I feel like, make our country a little bit herky-jerky, and that's probably not good. That particular executive order, I would have to read to see what it says, but, you know, again, can federal law trump state law? So if the state of Iowa has gender identity in the Civil Rights Code, can President Trump's executive order trump what the state of Iowa, oh, that's a pun, and I didn't even, can his executive order be more important than the state law? Because again, I think as conservatives, we say, let the state handle the state's business. If it's not in the if it's not in the Constitution for the federal government to handle, you stay out of it, federal government. And then,
Have to win at the state level.
oh, have to win at the state level, have to, because this might shock you guys. But do you know that Iowa's Republican congressional delegation in the U.S. House, you're going to love me because it's such great news that I bring. The Republicans in the U.S. House from Iowa have a 10% lower score than the Republicans from the state of New York. So do I think the tide is turning? I'm dumb enough to not care because I know we have to fight it. And I do think young people are waking up to the reality that the left is going way too far. Way too far. Today, there was a subcommittee on a bill that would require schools to display the state motto, our liberties we prize and our rights we will maintain. A professional lobbyist from the education lobby tried to quote it and she screwed it up. It was arguably one of the best moments I've seen this year at the Capitol, because she was opposed to the bill that would have displayed that state motto and students would have known it because they'd look at it, and she herself didn't know it. And the national motto, "In God We Trust." Most people spoke against it. 2 students spoke against it because it was Christian nationalism. I think they're in the minority, but they really believe it to the point that their mom, who is wears a minister collar, took them out of school, took them to the Capitol to say what they said against that bill. If you missed that subcommittee, it's available on the Iowa Standard's Facebook page. but I think they're in the minority. And I do think, I'll be honest with you, do I think we're going to win these issues? I don't know that we win the way we think of winning. We think like, all right, we get gender identity out of the Civil Rights Code, that's it, it's done, it's over, we win. I think we fight. That is how we win. Because duty is ours and results are up to God. And a victory to him may look radically different than victory to us. So do we win? I think you always win when you do what God's calling you to do. But does that mean we win here on this earth? I think there's a lot of people that'll say the Our Father, and they'll say, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, and not think about what they're actually saying. If we really believe it, again, last year, 300 to 400 LGBTQ activists showed up and acted absolutely insane. Where were our people? And this is a great time to tell you, if you want to come to the Capitol and you've never been through the subcommittee, committee process, all that, tell me you're coming. You can email, you can text me, whatever. You can sit with me for the day, walk around with me. You're more than welcome to join. You don't have to say a word. If you feel compelled to the point to where you do want to testify at a subcommittee, that's your opportunity. So that invitation's open to anybody. You're more than welcome to do that because, again, that's your opportunity to be the voice. You're the boss. I don't know if there's any business owners in here, but I think a lot of us, especially as Republicans, have this idea of we show up on election day, we hire our person, and then our job is done for the next 2 or 4 years. That's the beginning. You guys ever get hired at a job and never see the boss after you were hired? Wouldn't that be nice? I mean, especially since I'm my own boss. That'd be weird, but it would be nice some days. Think about it. Be involved. And that's literally the purpose of why I do what I do, to help you guys stay involved. I think that's go ahead.
First of all, Jacob, great topic. For some reason, I did not know what you're going to talk about tonight. Gary Shawver told me to come here tonight, and I knew that you're a very good guy to put a seminar on. But a week ago, I found some alarming stuff in my city of Waverly, Iowa.
Okay.
I did not know that Waverly, Iowa was funding HED, another word for Human Equity Diversity. In other words, it's DEI. Our city has a commission called HED. It's a commission now that my tax dollars are funding. So this commission tonight, when I sent the letter to the city council, the mayor, and the city administrator, showing my dissatisfaction of having this commission being funded by my taxpayer dollars. They are doing a presentation tonight at the City Hall in Waverly on Gay Pride in June in Waverly, Iowa, down the Cedar River. Did you know this, Jacob?
I didn't know it, but I believe it.
Yep. Go to Waverly City Hall. You can check this out. Look up HED. There's a presentation. When I wrote this letter to the mayor, the city council, and the city administrator, did I get any responses back? It was pretty blunt. I got 2 back. One councilman told me, you can come tonight and ask questions. No, I'm not going to ask these people any questions. The questions need to be asked to our local level. Why are we funding this type of stuff? So.
Yeah.
I just want to tell you, Jacob, God had me come here tonight to learn from you, and thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Yep. I think, how does that happen? There's a really simple answer. People don't know. Why don't they know? Because they don't know. Because they don't. I went to a Brit Library Board meeting because I had written about a book they had that was inappropriate. Brit, Iowa. I was the only person that showed up to the library board meeting. People don't know what's going on. And guess what? You get, in our system, outside of 2020, because it was rigged, you get the kind of representation you deserve because you voted for it.
I got a question from our young person here.
Okay.
He's waiting.
First off, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Jackson Hunter. I am Mark's oldest grandson. And I want to thank you all. Being here tonight was definitely eye-opening. I tend to enjoy learning from the minds of older generations. It's refreshing. I'm not constantly hearing the same old, and I'm going to be blunt, same old bullshit that my generation tends to spew. But I want to go back to what you had said earlier about how you see the tide changing amongst young men, how they're becoming more and more conservative, and I want to agree with you. But my question is, how come the women of my generation, they seem to be much more liberal?
Yep.
And it seems like there's never really a happy medium. Men are extremely conservative. Most women I meet are extremely liberal. Why do you think that is?
I think one question for those women is, how do they know they're a woman? Because the party that they support can't even tell them what they are. And I've told them. I've had high school girls stop at the booth at the Iowa State Fair and they don't care about politics. And I said, well, do you play sports? Yeah, I'm on the soccer team. Do you think that a boy should be able to come and join your soccer team because he says he's a girl? No, that's not right. I said, well, then you care about politics, because that's politics. I said, what about your school lunches? Do you guys like your school lunches? No, they don't like their school lunches. I said, you know who basically made the rules for your school lunches? Michelle Obama. That's politics. There's a lot that they don't know. And let's be honest. Women are not... Oh, I'm being recorded. I gotta think. Women are lovely, and they're not all the issue. Single women. Married women aren't liberal. Married women are not liberal. Single women, some are. That's just because they haven't been married long enough. Or they married a liberal guy, and that's a whole nother presentation. But I think a lot of it comes down to the issue of life. We just sat through a subcommittee on a bill that would require schools to show a fetal development video, 3 minutes long, on the organs and the way that a baby develops in the womb. You had 2 college students from the University of Iowa testify against it because the baby Olivia video says that a baby's heart can start to have a heart rate at 22 days, and that's not true. It's not detectable until 6 weeks. Then you had 2 high school girls speak against it, and they said, that it's not true that you can find the heart rate at 22 days because the baby's heart isn't fully developed until 10 weeks. And I thought, wait a minute. You guys just contradicted each other. You don't even know. I think that one issue they get convinced is the issue that drives their vote. But I do think science, ironically, who could think science, gender identity, biology, hello, science is showing us so much with 4D ultrasounds. I don't think it's up to 5D yet. I haven't had a kid in a while. But they're coming to a point with science where you can't deny what's in the womb. A baby. And when you ask those girls, we were at Sam's Club after the first day of the legislative session last year, and the girl that tries to get you to change your cell phone plan made the mistake of asking me what I do, and I made the mistake of answering. And then we talked for 45 minutes. I didn't change my cell phone plan. But I said, explain to me the difference, because she cared about the abortion issue. And I said, explain to me the difference if a woman is on her way to Planned Parenthood and she's turning into the parking lot. She goes into the Planned Parenthood clinic with a baby, walks out without a living baby inside her. That's nothing. It's nothing. But if she makes that same turn with that same baby in that same belly on that same day on that same street, and she's T-boned by a drunk driver, and it kills that same baby, he's charged with vehicular homicide. Explain the difference to me. They can't, because there isn't one. because it's a life. We have to do a better job of humanizing our issues. Sometimes we like to go with facts and figures as Republicans because we're so intellectual. That's not true. I'm not at all. Product of Des Moines Public Schools. I said that already. But we don't do a good job of stories. Because like it or not, that's what draws people in. And I hate feelings. I hate emotions. Hate them. But that's what draws people in. We need to use them. There is a question straight in the back.
I can talk without the microphone. First things first, South Dakota House passed the anti-pipeline bill this afternoon, 49 to 19. It goes to the Senate. Now, for my question, I fought like the devil to get put on the Iowa Party, Republican Party platform, getting rid of these joke things called nonpartisan elections. They're one of the biggest horse shit discrepancies ever pushed, because if you take a position, it's partisan. What are the chances we can try and help get something pushed so we can start seeing where these school board people, what they really are and what they really stand for, and hopefully starting to find ways to vote them out in regular election years? And it got put onto the platform because I fought like hell to get it there last year.
Okay. Based on the last two questions, we have to start this whole thing over because I can use words that I didn't know I could use, apparently. So I hope everybody's got more time. There is a bill to deal with that and to make those city council, county elections partisan. It was scheduled for a subcommittee. They canceled it. I don't know if that means it's dead, or I don't know if that means it just didn't work out for whatever reason for one of the legislators. I do know that my friend, who is the liberal blogger at the Capitol, does not like that bill, which means by default we love it. And I think the thing you have to be careful about is letting people know, are they really a Republican? Because where I live in Sioux Center, you can run as a Republican and win, because ironically, nobody wants to serve on the city council. And nobody wants to serve on this board or that board. So you have to really know that those people, and just if you didn't know, voter registration information is a public record that you can get on somebody for the last 10 years of their voter activity. So if somebody runs for office and you're a little unsure if they've been a Republican for the last 10 years, you can find out if they voted in a Democrat primary.
Okay, we're going to pass the bucket, and anything goes in the bucket goes to his travel expenses come across Iowa. And let's give him a round of.
I want to say, you guys, throughout 2024, during that whole election, we sat here and we heard President Trump tell us how he's going to save America and make America great again and everything else. I like President Trump. I had my picture with him once, but he's not going to save America. He's buying us time. This is what's going to save America. You guys care so much that you show up on a Monday night in Iowa in January to hear about something different every month, to come together with like-minded people. That's how you turn this country around. It's going to start in your house. Then it's going to go to your neighborhood. Then it can go to your city, county, school. It's going to take a crap ton of work. That's like my bad word, okay? It's going to take a lot of work. I don't know if we win. I don't know. But I know we have to try. And you guys being here tonight and here next month and the month after that shows you're not going to go away. What I really want you to do, come to the Capitol. Pick a day, Monday through Thursday. Bring a friend to this meeting next month. Get more people involved. Because I don't know that we'll win, but I know if we don't fight, we lose. And you guys being here is showing the fight that we need to give us a chance to win. So thank you very, very much.
Yeah. Maybe if he made the offer, maybe we should get together someday and make a caravan down there, spend the day, And I think it'll be a good idea, especially we got him there showing us all the ins and out.
Yeah, and if you guys want to sign up for the email newsletter, but you don't want to scan this QR code so China gets all your information, we can write down your email address. That's a joke. You can still scan it. They're not going to get your information. We can write down your email address, get you added, and you'll be fine. But I do, I'll be in contact with the guys from the group and let them know the best dates to come, because after funnel week it gets a little boring, but I think things are going to get more exciting over the next week or two.
So in a couple weeks or 3 weeks?
Anytime in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I think it'll be fun.
Okay.